tonight, calm stories over rainy Minecraft, and everyone asks the same quiet question. Am I overreacting? You decide. First up, my dad charged me rent from the day I turned 18. $200 a month in his own house. I thought it made him cheap. I was wrong. Here we go. My dad started charging me rent on my 18th birthday. $200 a month, cash, on the first, in the house I grew up in. He brought it up over dinner like it was nothing. Everyone pays their way in this house, he said, and that was the whole speech. My mother looked at her plate. I was still in school. None of my friends paid rent. I knew because I asked all of them. Their parents said things like, "Save your money, you're only young once." Mine took an envelope off me on the first of every month and never once said thank you. If I was late, he reminded me by leaving the calendar on my bed with the date circled. So I built a story about my father, and I kept it for years. He was cheap. He had always been cheap. The thermostat, the coupons, the way he drove 2 towns over for petrol. Now his own daughter was a line in a ledger. I paid every month, and every month it cost me a little more of how I saw him. I moved out at 23. He kept the arrangement going for my little brother, so I knew it wasn't personal, and somehow that made it worse. Then, this spring, I went to buy a flat. I was 11 years into knowing better than to ask my father for anything, and $4,000 short of the deposit. One Sunday, at their kitchen table, I finally asked him the question I had been swallowing since I was 18. Why did you charge me? He got up without a word and came back with a bank book. My name was on the cover, my full name in his handwriting. The first deposit was dated the month I turned 18. $200, then $200 more, on the first of every month, for as long as I had lived under his roof. He had never spent $1 of it. It had been sitting there for 11 years, growing quietly, waiting for exactly the table we were sitting at. $26,400. He said the flat was the reason all along. He said, "You would never have saved it if I had asked you nicely." He is right, and I hate that he is right. And the flat has a spare room he stays in when he visits. I tried to give some of it back once. He looked at me like I had offered to return a birthday. That story ends there. 11 years of envelopes and a man who never spent one of them. He still circles dates on calendars. I keep everyone. Every Saturday, my husband drives to the same diner alone and orders a $9 breakfast. Then he leaves a 20 on the table and comes home. Everywhere else he tips like a normal person. Just there, just then, and he has never once asked me to come along. The first year I thought it was a habit he had picked up somewhere and never questioned. Then I started finding the receipts in his jacket pockets, week after week, the same small total with the same big number written under it. After that, I checked the bank app on Sunday mornings, and it was always there. So I did the arithmetic one night at the kitchen table. Over $1,000 a year, all of it at the same diner on the same morning for a plate of eggs. After that, I could not stop wondering who on the morning shift was really getting it. Not an affair, exactly, because I never quite got that far, but a person he had never once named to me. That is where my head went, and it stayed there for weeks. One Saturday in April, I followed him. I parked across the road, gave him 15 minutes, and then walked in like anybody else. He had already gone. A young server was clearing his booth, and her eyes were red, and she held the bill out so I could see the folded paper under it. 4 words in his handwriting. Someday, trade places. She said he had sat there all morning while she dropped things and apologized. He left right after she came back from the walk-in with her face washed. The owner came out of the kitchen and told me the rest, because it was clear I did not know any of it. My husband waited tables in that room at 19. On his worst shift there, a regular left him exactly that tip with exactly that note. He never found out who it was. He has been the regular ever since. 572 Saturdays, same booth, watching for whoever is having the morning he had. The owner has watched him do it for 11 years and has never once mentioned it to him. He still goes alone. I have stopped asking about it, and I have stopped adding it up. That story ends there. He orders the same eggs every week, and he still picks the booth with the best view of the floor. My brother helped me move house on a Saturday, and by Sunday morning he had emailed me an invoice. It was itemized, it had a due date, and it was numbered INVW041. This is a thing he does. When he jump-started my aunt's car outside a supermarket, an invoice turned up 2 days later. When our mum turned 70, she got one for the cake and the marquee hire. My cousin had one for babysitting, and another for a lift to the airport at 4 in the morning. Nobody ever mentioned them out loud. They just arrived, quietly, a day or 2 after the favour itself. I read it as scorekeeping, and I let that set hard over about a week. Here was a man who needed everybody to know the exact weight of what he had done for them, down to the fuel. I had a line ready for Sunday dinner. I had tried it out in the car twice to hear how it landed. Then I stopped at a red light near our mum's house, opened the email again, and read the whole thing to the bottom. I had never once done that. Line 1 was the van and the fuel. Line 2 was 6 hours of lifting. Line 3 said, "Your kid's on the bubble wrap, no charge." Line 4 was about my kettle being the first thing unpacked, and that was no charge either. Every figure in the right-hand column came to nothing, £0 and 0 pence, all the way down. Across the bottom, in grey capitals, it said PAI in full. I asked his wife about it in her kitchen before anybody sat down to eat. She went to a cupboard and came back with a ring binder, and the whole family's invoices were in it, in order. The way people keep birthday cards, 40 of them, going back to 2014. Mine was not in there yet. She said he prints a copy for the folder every time. He has never once managed to say any of it out loud, she told me. Not to our mum, not to me, not to her. And this is the only way he has found that works. I paid it the way those get paid. I wrote back one line, thanking him for the bubble wrap. He replied with the word noted and nothing else. That story ends there. Mine is pinned to the corkboard by my back door, and I have stopped waiting for him to put it another way. My brother pays his 12-year-old an allowance of $2 a week, and he drives a truck he bought new last fall. My kids get 20, and I've never once felt generous about it. I saw the rest of it in July. His girls were out mowing the side yard in real heat while he sat on the porch with a glass of tea. Later that summer it was the gutters, and he watched those too. At Thanksgiving, his son hauled every folding chair up from the basement, and my brother never left his seat. It did not take me long to decide what kind of man that made him. He was careful with money in a way that had turned mean, and his kids were learning that work at home is free. I did not say it to him. I said it to his daughter instead, in the kitchen, in the worst way. I asked her if $2 felt fair. She set down the plate she was drying and went to get her backpack. She came back with a card in a plastic sleeve, laminated at the library, typed and signed at the bottom by the two of them. Base pay sat on the first line. Under it was every job she had pitched him herself, each with a price beside it she had argued for. The list went on. The gutters, the folding chairs, washing the truck, sorting the recycling. She said she cleared $37 last week. Then she took me through it line by line, and she defended every one of them without blinking. The base pay was never the allowance. It was the floor, and everything above it she had to ask for out loud. I went out to the porch that night and asked my brother about it. He told me he worked the same job for 15 years and never once asked for a raise. He said he kept waiting to be noticed, and nobody noticed, and he decided his kids would learn to say a number out loud before they ever needed to. My two still get their 20. But there is a notebook on our kitchen counter now, and my youngest charges me $4 to bring the bins in on Mondays. A price she set herself. That story ends there. He watched from that porch because the pricing was hers to do. I've been practicing saying numbers out loud ever since. 3 Christmases ago, I gave my sister a gift card for her favourite bookshop, £50 on it. She has never spent a penny, and I know that because I checked the balance online one night. She carries the card in her wallet every single day. It sits in the front slot, ahead of her bank card, so she lifts it out to pay for anything. The first year I assumed she was saving it for something proper. The next Christmas I asked what she had picked, and she said she was still deciding and moved us on to the pudding. By the 3rd year, I had stopped asking and started watching instead. Her old wallet fell apart and the card came straight through to the front of the new one. I decided the gift had missed, not badly and not in a way she would ever say out loud. She was too polite to spend it on the wrong thing and too kind to tell me I had guessed wrong about her, so she carried it about instead. 3 years is a long time to be told something gently. In March, I asked her outright. We were in her kitchen with the kettle going, and I admitted I had looked up the balance. I said she could spend it on anything, and that I would not mind if she hated the shop. She took the card out and set it on the table between us. The edges had gone soft and pale, the way paper does when it is handled every day. Then she told me about that winter. She had £31.40 in her account the week I handed it over, and rent due 9 days after that. She had told nobody, not our mother and not me. She came to Christmas dinner and ate seconds and laughed at the crackers. Money that was only allowed to be books, she said, from her sister, riding around in her wallet all that winter. It made her feel like a person instead of a budget. If she spent it, it would turn back into money. Keeping it keeps it a gift. I have stopped asking her to use it. She is fine now, and the card is still in the front slot. Every Christmas since, I have just bought the book myself and handed it over already wrapped. That story ends there. It is the only present I have ever given that gets used every single day and never once opened. My husband insists on being the tooth fairy, and he leaves the strangest amounts. $1.37 under the first tooth, 85 cents under the second, and once $2.03, all of it in coins. Every kid in her class gets a crisp 5. Our daughter worked that out fast, and she told me at breakfast that we had got the broke fairy. The third tooth came out in October, and the pile under her pillow was not quite $2. By the fourth, I was checking the pillow before she woke up, the way you check a thing you already know. By the fifth, I had stopped hoping for paper money. For a while, I put it down to laziness. He was emptying his pockets on the way to bed and calling it a tradition. I dreaded the school gate, where the other mothers already had opinions about fairy inflation. So I put a 5 in the drawer on his side of the bed, crisp and obvious, where he could not miss it. The sixth tooth came out on a Tuesday. In the morning, there was $1.60 in dimes and pennies under the pillow, and the 5 was still in the drawer. That night, I asked him why he would not just use it. He went out to the garage and came back with a tin that used to hold boiled sweets. Inside was a note his own father wrote him the night his last baby tooth came out. "The fairy pays what she has," it said. "Sorry about the year of the bus tokens." His dad had never had a spare 5 in his life. Whatever was in his pocket got counted into a kid's palm at breakfast, coin by coin, and my husband said he never once fell short. "A note feels like allowance," he said. "Coins feel like treasure." At dinner, our daughter brought the jam jar she keeps it all in and tipped it out on the table. She counted the whole lot twice and got $9.61. Then she settled the school thing herself. "The other kids just got money," she said. "She got treasure." 2 more teeth are loose. I have stopped worrying about the school gate, and I keep a bowl of change by the back door so he never runs out. That story ends there. The tin lives on our shelf now, and there is still 1 bus token in the bottom of it. Every January, my mother redoes her will, and she makes the 3 of us sign a page saying we have read it. She is 68 and perfectly well. The will comes with a tight list. Our names sit next to every object she owns, down to the egg cups. She hands the copies out after Sunday lunch and waits at the table while we read them. That first January, I thought someone had frightened her at the doctor's. The next one came round the same way, same table, same pen. By the 4th, I had stopped asking, because arguing about it took longer than signing. She started asking us odd questions over lunch, what we were using, what we would hang on a wall. For years, I decided she was ranking us and printing it once a year for all of us to read. My brother got the piano back the year he drove her to Wales. I could not prove it, and I believed it anyway. I never threw the copies away. They went in the drawer with the batteries, one on top of the other, and never looked at them twice. So one Saturday, I laid 6 years of the list out on my kitchen floor and went down the columns. Things had moved. The house never shifted, but the small items did. A lamp and a set of blue bowls and a clock I had once said I liked. Then I rang my aunt, because she is the one who tells me things. She said my grandmother sold her flat when my mother was 34, and there was a brooch in the drawer with nobody's name on it. Both daughters wanted it, and neither of them said so out loud. My aunt and my mother did not speak for 9 years and 2 months after that. My grandmother was alive for every day of it, watching them pass the salt and nothing else. So my mother labels everything. She would rather be embarrassing on a Sunday in January than leave one drawer for us to guess about. The lunch questions made sense after that. She asks what we have been using and what we would hang on a wall. Then she goes home and moves it into the right column. She rang last week about the blue bowls. I said I still liked them. She said good and changed the subject. That story ends there. I sign the page every January now, and I've stopped reading past the first line. My wife tutors on Saturday mornings, cash only, and in 4 years not $1 has reached our accounts. I found the envelopes in her glove box, labelled, dated, empty. The first one I put back and forgot about. Then I went looking for the tire gauge and found 7 more, a month written on each. After that, I checked every time I took the car, and each new envelope was empty by the end of the month. She had 1 student, most Saturdays, 2 if somebody needed her. The money never landed anywhere I could see, and I never asked. My head went to the bad places. Money you cannot see is money set aside for the day she leaves, or a debt she was ashamed to name, or somebody else. One Saturday in October, I let her pull out of the driveway, waited and followed. She parked at the elementary school where she taught until 8 years ago and walked in like she still worked there. The woman at the front desk said her name before the door had shut. I came in behind her and my wife turned and saw me. The secretary looked at the two of us and pulled a ledger from under the counter. It was the cafeteria book. Every month my wife hands over an envelope and the office clears the negative lunch balances with it. Smallest account first, working up until the cash runs out. 4 years ago, the district stopped writing those balances off. At the bottom of the page, somebody had kept a running total of everything she had brought in, $9,440. Nobody goes hungry over it. A kid with an empty account still gets fed. It is the alternate lunch, a cheese sandwich handed over at the side of the line in front of everybody. $11 is all it takes to be that kid. She cried in the car, and then she told me how she knew about that sandwich. She was 9 years old, at a school 2 states over, and she ate it most of 1 year. She said, "You do not forget where you stood in that line." I told her what I had been thinking, and she laughed, which was fair. She said the smallest balances go first, because that way the most kids get out of that line. That story ends there. I leave the cash in the glove box myself on Friday nights now, and neither of us has said a word about it. My sister runs every family group gift, the envelope, the card, the collecting, all of it. And this spring I finally noticed that our cousin is never asked to chip in, not once in years, though her name is always on the card, and always first. It started with an aunt's retirement clock. My sister texted the rest of us an amount, and our cousin was not on the thread. Then it was a new baby, and the same thing happened again. By the 4th one I was checking on purpose, and it held every time. The envelope went round, her name went on the card, and she never put in $1. So I turned into somebody I did not enjoy being. I started keeping a quiet tally of who paid for what in this family, and I decided my sister had a favorite. Or worse, that our cousin had found herself a very comfortable arrangement. I never said any of it out loud. I just got slower answering the group texts. Then came Grandma's birthday, and I ran my own numbers. I asked the aunts and cousins what they had put in, casually, like I was only making conversation. 6 of us had given $20 each. There were 7 names on that card, and the gift on the table cost $140. I drove over to my cousin's house with the card, told her I needed her signature, and asked her outright what she puts in these days. She laughed at me, which I had coming, and then her voice went thin. 7 years ago, she was out of work for most of a year. Grandma turned 80 that spring, and she could not put her share in the envelope, so she skipped it and said nothing. Then she sat in her car outside the party and cried before she went in. My sister found out somehow, and she never announced a rule about it. She just started covering the gap, and the name went on the card the same as always. $412 by my cousin's own count across the years since. I asked my sister about it that night. She said a card should have everyone on it because that is what a card is for, and then she asked whether I wanted the last of the cake. That story ends there. I still sign where I am told, and I have stopped adding anything up. Her name still goes first. My roommate splits every bill with me down to the penny. Every bill except the water, which she has paid by herself since the day we moved in. Electric, internet, trash pickup. Her half lands the same afternoon, odd cents and all. She once sent me 11 cents because the gas split unevenly, but the first water bill came and she waved me off, said it was handled. The next time I offered, she said it faster. After that, she stopped letting me finish the sentence. So I decided something was wrong with the pipes. A slow leak she knew about, maybe, or something crooked with the meter that would land on me later. I started timing showers from the kitchen while I pretended to cook. On Sundays, I took a flashlight down to the basement and read the meter onto the back of an envelope. Nothing was leaking. We used what 2 normal people use, and that bothered me more than a leak would have. Her mother came to stay in April. I was drying dishes beside her when I asked, plain, if there was something about the water I ought to know. She laughed very gently and told me. When my roommate was small, the water got shut off more than once. Her mother would boil kettles on the stove, carry them to the tub, and call it spa night, so the kids would think it was a treat instead of a problem. My roommate worked it out at 9 and never let on. Her mother went to bed early. My roommate came out and showed me her phone without my asking. The water auto pay is set for the 1st of the month, out of a small account she keeps for nothing else. $41.60 every month, scheduled ahead of her rent, her car, and her own groceries. It is the one bill in her life that will never be late. She said that like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I stopped offering. I pay a bit more of the electric now, and she has never mentioned it, which is how she agreed to it. I still read the meter some Sundays, out of habit. That story ends there. Somewhere in this city there is a small account with one job, and it has never missed a day of work. My daughter's piggy bank never runs out. She hits the ice cream truck all summer. and the pig stays heavy. I counted it in June, $23. She spends about 6 of that a week, the way a 7-year-old spends, and by Sunday night the pig weighed the same as before. It happened again the next week and the week after that. By then I was counting on purpose and the total never moved. My mother was the obvious answer. She thinks our rules about money are cute and her purse is always full of quarters. I asked her straight out and she looked offended, so I moved on to the answer I liked less. My wallet sits on the hall table all day and my daughter is small and quick and knows where it lives. So one Sunday night I put a dot of pink nail polish on every coin in that pig, and I marked a few of my own bills in pen as well. A week later my bills were still mine, everyone. The pig was full again and most of the dots were gone. Strange quarters sat where the old ones had been. Whatever was filling it up lived in my house. I found it on a Saturday in a sock drawer, inside a folded envelope with a lawn list written on the back. $54 had crossed from that envelope into her pig since the first week of June. My son is 14. He mows yards all summer, and he had been walking down the hall every Sunday while she slept. He shrugged when I asked him. Then he reminded me about the morning the car died last spring, when we were all standing in the driveway working out what to do. His sister came out with the pig held against her chest and offered us the whole thing. We laughed. It was a kind laugh, but we laughed, and then we went back to the phone calls. He was the only one still watching her face. He said she gave hers first. He does not want her to learn to save it. He wants her to reach in all summer and never find the bottom. I have not told her, and I am not going to. The truck comes on Tuesdays, and the pig is heavy on Wednesdays. That story ends there. He has a sock drawer and a plan, and I am the one still learning. His rate went up this month, and I paid it without a question. My best friend cancels everything. She keeps a spreadsheet for killing free trials on day 13, and she has never paid for a month she did not want. But she pays $17 a month for a streaming service, and in 4 years I have never once seen her watch it. She got her gym to refund a whole December. She talked a phone company down twice in one call politely, while I sat there and listened. When a magazine charged her after a trial, she got the money back and a written apology too. Cancelling things is not a chore for her. She genuinely enjoys it. So the one subscription never fit, and I teased her about it for years. I decided it was plain hypocrisy, the lazy bill everybody has and nobody mentions. I thought she was a little embarrassed, and I thought naming it might help. Last spring, I decided to just fix it for her. She was in the kitchen making tea. Her laptop was open on the table, and I got as far as the confirm button. She came around the corner and closed the lid on my hands. She said sorry straight away, but she had gone white. I asked her what that was. She sat down, opened it again, and turned the screen toward me, and it was not the billing page. It was the viewing history. It was the same 3 comfort shows over and over, always starting a little after 3 in the morning. The device line said a city 800 miles from either of us. She scrolled for a while, and the count at the top said 406 plays. Her old college roommate is a nurse on nights. She takes her break at 3, puts an episode on her phone, and sleeps in a chair for 20 minutes with a voice she knows already going. 2 years ago, my friend mentioned cancelling it on a phone call, half as a joke. The roommate went quiet. Not angry, just quiet. And then she talked about something else. My friend never mentioned it again. She still kills trials on day 13. She will still argue with me over a delivery fee. And every month she pays the one bill she never checks, which keeps a light on in another state. That story ends there. She has never told her roommate that she worked out what the quiet meant, and I do not think she ever will. The woman 2 doors down runs a garage sale every summer where nearly everything costs a quarter, furniture included. Everything except one folding table where a chipped mug costs $8 and she will not come down a cent. The first summer, I assumed a tag had fallen off something else and landed there. The next year, the table was back, and so were the prices. A jar of buttons for $6. A boxed puzzle with a corner missing, $12. By the third summer, I checked that table first, before I looked at anything else. It did not take me long to decide she was running a hustle. The quarter prices were bait, cheap enough to pull half the street onto her lawn. And that table waited at the end for whoever got carried away. Last July, I tested it. I picked up the mug in front of a small crowd and offered $3, in the voice you use when you both know a thing is silly. She said she could not take $3. She said it was not her mug to sell. Then she looked past me and called across the road. A boy came over with a plastic cash box under his arm. He is 9. He told me the mug had been his grandmother's, that the price on the tag was the price, and he did not blink while he said it. The marker on that tag was his. I had read the handwriting for 3 summers without ever once looking at it. He opened a notebook and turned it round so I could read. Every sale he had made was in there, dated, in columns. Taped to the last page was a telescope cut out of a catalogue, $89, and under it his running total. He had 48. $41 to go, underlined twice. The woman told me the rest while he packed up. Her own things go for a quarter because she wants them out of the house. The table is his, and she will not haggle on it, and she will not stand by while anybody else does. She said a boy ought to learn that his work is worth what he says it is, and on her driveway it is. I paid what the tag said. The table was out again this June with new numbers on it, and she still would not move on a single one. That story ends there. It is a bad mug, honestly, and I drink out of it most mornings. There's a man at my office who feeds $1.50 into the break room vending machine every morning and then walks away without pressing a button. He has done it every workday for as long as anybody here can remember. The first time, I assumed he had changed his mind about the crisps. A week later, I saw the same thing. Coins in, no button, out the door. After that, I watched properly, and it never varied. Same machine, same amount, all way before the rest of us got in. I went straight to the ugly explanation. The machine ate his money years ago, and now he pays it a toll every morning like a parking meter. Or he had an angle with the credit that the rest of us were too slow to spot. I came in at 6 on a Tuesday to see for myself. He'd already been and gone. The credit sat glowing on the display, waiting for anybody. At 10 past, the night cleaner came up from the basement in her coat, pressed 2 buttons without looking, and sat down by the window with oatmeal and a black coffee. She was easy about it when I asked. She has never spoken to him, and he has never once been in the room while she eats. Years ago, somebody on days left her an envelope of money, and she gave it straight back and would not speak to him for a month. She does not take charity, but credit sitting on a machine belongs to nobody, and nobody is easy to accept from. She opened her purse and showed me the note that started it, soft at the folds. "Get the oatmeal," it said. "It's the only honest thing in there." The vending man comes on Thursdays. He checked his sheet for me and said that machine has sold 1,760 cups of oatmeal, more than the rest of his route put together. The note is dated the 9th of March, 7 years ago. She catches her bus at 6:20, and he is at his desk 2 floors up by then with his door shut. I have not said a word to either of them. I just stopped touching that machine before 6:30. That story ends there. He never gets to watch her eat, and she never has to thank him. I think that is the most polite thing money has ever done in that building. Every Friday, my granddad buys 1 lottery ticket with the same 6 numbers, and he has never checked a single one of them. They go straight into a kitchen drawer, and that drawer has been filling up for years. The first time I pulled it open, the tickets came out in a pile, all one size, worn soft at the folds. I asked him if he ever won anything, and he said he wouldn't know. The next summer the drawer was fuller, and the answer was the same. By the time I was old enough to drive into the shop myself, I had watched him write those numbers at the counter many times. He had still never looked at a result. So in my head, he became a stubborn old man losing money out of habit. I had a small fortune rotting in a kitchen drawer while he kept his coat on indoors to save on heating. One Sunday while he napped, I took 50 tickets to the table and checked everyone against the archive on my phone. It took me most of the afternoon. 3 of them had won $4 each, $12, sitting in a drawer for nobody. On the Friday, I put those tickets on the kitchen table and told him what he'd been throwing away. He put his tea down and heard me out. Then he took that week's ticket, turned it over, and wrote on the back with the little pencil from the shop a name beside each number. My cousin, my brother, the twins, and me, the day of the month each of us was born. The last one was the day he married my grandmother. Then he told me what he actually does with his $2. He stands at that counter with the ticket in his hand and goes down the line, 1 grandchild at a time, about a minute each, and then her at the end. He has done it 641 times. Checking it, he said, would make the whole thing about money, and it has never once been about money. I asked him what he would do when the drawer got full. He said he would find a bigger drawer. He still won't check them. I drive him most Fridays now, and I've stopped taking my phone in with me. That story ends there. He is going to keep losing on purpose, and I've decided that is entirely his business. My wife spends 2 hours every Sunday clipping coupons we do not need. We are fine. We have been fine for years, and she still holds up the whole checkout line counting them out while the queue stares at me. At first, I put it down to how she was raised. By the spring, I was noticing the shape of it. The same chair, the same small scissors, the same 2 hours, and never a Sunday missed. Then the Tuesday started. She would leave after lunch with her handbag, and come home with nothing, cheerful, saying she had been running errands. I turned it into a fault. Money had frightened her when she was young, and I decided the fright had simply outlived the reason. I never said the word miserly out loud. I thought it in a supermarket more than once, and I've had to sit with that. One Tuesday, I went out to the car before she did, and I opened the boot. There were 2 binders in there. Ours was the blue one, soft at the corners. The other was red and much fatter, and the tabs down the side were in handwriting that was not hers. I put it back and asked if I could come along. She told me on the drive over, her mother's eyes have been going for a few years now. The small print has gone soft on her, and a coupon is nothing but small print, so every Sunday my wife cuts the whole set twice. She sorts the second one the way her mother has sorted hers since 1974, dairy, tins, cleaning, then a section they both call maybes. Tuesday she drops it at the flat and stays for tea, and neither of them mentions the eyes. I went shopping with the old woman that Thursday. She moved down her aisle slowly, binder under her arm. She told the girl on the till that her daughter does the cutting and that nobody cuts straighter. Then she counted them out with the line building behind her, unhurried, and took $11.30 off her shop. She said the number out loud. It was never about saving money. It is about her mother staying the woman who has never once needed help at the till. That story ends there. I still get stared at in the queue, and now I stand there holding the bags, exactly where I mean to be. The woman who runs our charity shop would not sell me a coat. It was hanging on the rail with a price tag on it, and she lifted it off the hook and told me that one was not for sale. Green wool, good buttons, my size. I had watched her do a version of this before. A leather bag went under the counter the same morning it came in. A box of plates never made it as far as the shelf. Once she carried a whole bin bag through to the back while a queue waited. It happened more than it should have. I had read a piece about charity shop staff creaming off the good stock and selling it on, so that is where my head went. For a month I checked the listings most nights, typing green wool coat into the search box and scrolling past other people's. I never found it. That should have told me something. So one Saturday I offered to help sort bags, and she let me. Halfway through the morning I found the shelf. 7 or 8 things on it, each with a paper tag and a date. The coat was there. I asked her what the shelf was for, and she did not go red or change the subject. 20 years behind that counter, she said, and you learn to tell when a donation hurts. A box handed over too fast. Somebody talking about the weather while their hands shake. Those go on the shelf for 90 days, off the books and out of the till, because people come back. Then she got out an exercise book with a line in it for every one of them. 106 of those lines had the word back written beside them. In November, I was in the shop when a woman came in still holding her car keys. She asked, in a small voice, about a green coat. Our shop gives every donor a paper slip worth 50p, a thank you can spend. She still had hers, soft at the folds. She paid with that, and she wore the coat out of the door. The woman behind the counter wrote a line in her book and went back to sorting a bag of jumpers. She has never mentioned it to me since. That story ends there. I found a red coat 2 rails over, and I like it better. The vegetable man at the Saturday market charges me more than the woman ahead of me. Same bag of apples, and she handed over 80 pence while I paid £3.50. I heard it in April and told myself I had got it wrong. The next week, I stood behind an older man, and his potatoes came out at less than half of mine. After that, I was listening at every till without meaning to, and the cheap ones were always pensioners or mums with prams. So I ran a test. I asked my neighbour, who is 78, to buy my exact list 10 minutes after me. We compared at her gate. Same shopping, and she had paid £4.20 when mine came to 14. I worked out what was happening, or thought I had. He had one price for the people he liked and another for the rest of us. 2 years of shopping there, and I had been quietly funding it. I wrote the speech on a Friday night, in my head. It was calm and fair and impossible to argue with. I took it with me the next morning and got there early. I sat at the bus stop with my bag on my knees and watched him set up. A young mum sat down beside me with 3 children in a pushchair, and she saw where I was looking. She told me he was the reason her lot still ate proper vegetables, and that he had never once let her pay the full price. She said it the way you would mention the weather. So I put the speech away and asked him about it. He did not get defensive. He reached under the till and brought out a card, faded and soft at the corners. It was his price list from 1994, written in pencil. Pensioners pay those prices, and so do parents who are counting. Everybody else pays today's price, and the gap gets covered by people who can afford it and never know they are doing it. He has run that card ever since, with no sign and no speech and no name for it. I asked why he never tells anyone. He said the moment he tells us, it stops being shopping and starts being charity, and then the ones who need it stop coming. I still go every Saturday, and I've stopped watching what other people pay. That story ends there. I have never asked to see that card again, and I pay whatever he asks. At our laundromat, there is always a small stack of quarters sitting on machine number 7, and the attendant pretends not to see it. I used them once, and a woman folding towels glared at me like I had robbed a church. I put them back, and after that I watched the stack. Some Sundays it stood 3 coins high. Some Sundays it was gone by noon and full again by 4. A man in a work jacket added to it without breaking stride. A girl with a basket took a couple and did not look at anyone. Nobody ever said a word about it. So I made up my mind about the place. It ran on rules nobody had bothered to tell me, and those coins were somebody's turf. I used the machines at the far end for a month and kept my own change in my pocket. On a slow Tuesday, I asked the attendant straight out whose quarters those were. He kept mopping. He said they belong to whoever is short. You leave them when you have extra, and take them when the dryer wants more than your pocket has. He said the stack was there before he started, and he has been there 4 years. I said nobody had explained that to me. He said nobody explains it to anybody, which is the only part that works badly. The woman with the towels was back that Sunday. She saw me looking at 7 and came over, and there was nothing sharp in her at all. She taught me the etiquette herself. Coins flat, never in a cup, never more than you would be comfortable owing. $3.25 was the most she had ever counted on that lid, and she remembered the week. Then she told me she started it. Years ago, 10 minutes before closing, with a load of wet clothes and a dryer that wanted 4 coins. She had 2. A stranger walked past, made up the difference on the lid, and was gone before she could turn around. She's been putting it back ever since. She glared at me, she said, because I took the coins without looking like I needed them. I probably did look like that. Now I leave whatever I have spare and take what I have to, and I've stopped wondering who is watching. That story ends there. Nobody owns machine number 7. That is the whole rule, and it took me most of a year to learn it. Every car boot sale we do, the same man buys something off my table in the first 10 minutes. He never haggles, and he always goes for the worst thing I've got. In March, it was a mug with a chip in the handle. In April, he paid £4 for a toaster I had labelled as spares or repair, and he carried it off to his van like a prize. By the summer, I could see him coming across the grass while I was still unfolding the legs of the table. So I made up my mind about him. He was a dealer, working the field early in case something good was hiding in the junk. Then I thought of an answer I liked even less. He had watched me counting my float, and he felt sorry for me, and that idea stung in a way the dealer one never did. In July, I tested him. I put out a lamp nobody on earth would want, with a taped cord, a wobbling base, and a shade that matched none of it. I priced it low and set it right at the front. He bought the lamp. I carried it over to his van, mostly so I could ask. His wife was in the passenger seat with a thermos on her knees, and she had poured me a cup before I got the question out. She told me they did their first boot sale 31 years ago on a wet field not far from this one. They sat there all morning and sold nothing, right up until 7 when a stranger stopped and bought a cracked jug off them. She turned to her husband and told him the first sale changes the whole day. He believed her, and he has believed her ever since. He is the oldest regular in this field now, and he buys the first thing off every new table he sees. Then she told me about the shed at home. 38 toasters on one shelf, none of them ever plugged in, along with the chipped mugs and a bread bin with no lid. He calls it the lup shelf. She has stopped arguing about the space. I sold nearly everything I had that day, which proves nothing. He was 3 rows over by then, buying a broken clock off a woman who had clearly never done this before. That story ends there. I keep something cheap and terrible at the front of my table now, ready for him. He has never once looked disappointed. Every Sunday night, my wife empties our change jar onto the kitchen table, counts it into stacks, writes the total on a sticky note, and puts every coin back. There is about $140 in there, and 5 years of sticky notes in the drawer. She has never spent 1 cent of it. The first year I thought it was a hobby. Then the washing machine died in February and we put it on a card, and the jar sat there full. She counted it that Sunday like nothing had happened. After that, I watched for it. A thin month, a car repair, a Christmas we kept small, and the money never moved. So I settled on an ugly answer. She did not trust me with money, and the counting was her way of saying so. One night I said we should cash it in and go out for dinner. She looked at me like I had suggested selling the dog, and she was quiet all evening. I lay awake wondering what the counting was guarding. Then I tried something small. On a Wednesday I dropped about $20 of my own coins into the jar. She found them that Sunday, wrote the new total, then asked where they came from. She was not annoyed about it, she was worried. In April, we stayed at her parents' for the weekend. After Sunday dinner, her father got up, and instead of leaving him to it, I stayed in the kitchen. He took a coffee tin off the fridge and tipped it onto his own kitchen table. He sorted the coins into the same stacks, in the same order she uses. Then he squared the last stack up and said it out loud to nobody. $88.15. We're all right. I turned around. My wife was in the doorway with a tea towel and she was mouthing it along with him. Her mother told me the rest at the sink. There were years when that tin was all they had, back when the work came and went. He counted it every Sunday so the girls could hear the number, and he finished the same way every time. The jar was never savings. It was the counting and what he said at the end of it. She still does it every Sunday, and I've stopped offering to spend it. That story ends there. She writes the total, we go up to bed, and the house feels steadier for it. That's all for tonight. 21 stories, and every one of them started the same way, with money making somebody look small. It almost never is what it looks like. Most people who count carefully are counting for somebody else. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next one. Good night.